Welcome to ETHDam, to ETHDam, to ETHDam, to ETHDam, to ETHDam.
Hello everyone. So yeah, very bold title. It is actually different than what you think. It's a very short talk and there's a lot that you can say about privacy. Here, my main idea is to give you two simple lessons, new ideas about the approach that we have against privacy. And this is what it is all about. So first of all, let's define like what are different types of achieving privacy. This probably you know, but I will explain a little just to give you some context and make a comparison between these two in about like which one is better in some cases maybe. So the first one is any encryption-based solutions. So FHE also falls under this category, or plain old encryption is also of this type. Basically, you have the data, you send your data to a cloud, it can be internet, it can be a blockchain, but the data is encrypted and the storage key is not known by everyone. And the second one is the ZK proving-based client-side solution, which is a bit more different. So first of all, what is the encryption-based secure storage solution? There we have encryption, and that allows us to hide the information. We can also use cool stuff like FHE to actually perform on this encrypted stuff. So basically you encrypt that thing, but you don't use decryption in order to make computation. So you actually work on the encrypted values, which is a very strong tool to achieve privacy for sure, with some limitations that I will touch in a bit. And yeah, information cannot be decrypted because the key is not known by everyone. The key can be a shared key, so maybe it's not only me, but like there are different parties holding parts of keys, so they do decryption in parts, different parties. That's also possible. But then that's the idea. There's always a key, and that is the way of achieving privacy. And in these type of encryption-based solutions, the idea of security comes from a hard cryptographic problem. So before it was discrete log, nowadays new quantum resistant stuff, they are using lattice space or different stuff to achieve like post-quantum encryption security. But there is always a hard problem. And when we say hard, it means that if you know the answer, it is easy to verify, it's easy to solve. If you don't know the answer, it's really hard to guess the answer, even if you have a lot of stuff that had the same answer for different questions. So it's hard to like solve the problem. So that's the idea of encryption-based solutions. And the second one is ZK-based client-side solutions. So this is actually the only way of achieving privacy with ZK. When people say zero knowledge gives you privacy, this is not fully accurate because ZK's privacy is different from encryption's privacy. Encryption is about hiding something from others. ZK is about hiding something from everyone else for all the time. You don't share the information in any context. You just prove that you had the information at some point while generating the proof, and you generated the proof in accordance with that information. So the information is used as private inputs and it never leaves the client side. If you are generating the proof in your computer, the information stays in your computer. You don't need to send it to any cloud or anything such. And so there is no storage of information. As I said before, since it never leaves, and the information cannot be extracted by other parties. So that part is a bit different. So in encryption, we said that there is security because there's a hard problem, and we can't actually get the information from the encrypted value because we can't solve the hard problem if we don't have the key. That was the idea of encryption. With ZK, that's not the case. And I will try making it simple with some intuition. So you know that ZK proofs have constant size. So it can be either the size doesn't depend on the input, or maybe the proof like over aggregation keeps the same input, meaning that multiple proofs can be combined into a single proof without, increasing the proof size. But in any case, we see that the proof has a constant size. Even if the input size increases, the proof size doesn't increase. And that actually shows us very well that there's privacy. Why? Because if there wasn't privacy, and it was possible for us to understand the information from the ZK proof, this would mean the infinite shrinking of information into constant size, which is like impossible theoretically. Just think, I have infinite amount of information, like my entire browser history, and I create one proof. How this single size proof can include all this information? There is privacy because information is not inside the proof. That is like very, very simple to understand. How ZK proofs work, that's complex. But why they are secure and private, I think that's quite easy to see. Because of their constant size, there is no information that can be leaked from the proof. So then, let's make a comparison between the two. Is ZKP better than encryption? And I believe there are three advantages that are not that much spoken about. The first one is an attack resistance, what I call store now, decrypt later attack. When I say that something is encrypted, people always think that if I cannot decrypt it at the moment, then that's secure. This is not true. I can store the encrypted information up until there is a decryption method available. So quantum computers are coming. Someday, quantum computers will break lattice-based problems as well. And don't only think quantum. Like 20 years ago, we didn't have quantum computers, right? Or 100 years ago, we even didn't have quantum. Maybe 50 years later, we will have this new physics or core maths, theoretical maths problem approach that we have that will solve all the encryption methods that we have at the moment. Of course, once we have quantum decryption or this new cool decryption, there will be another new cool encryption as well. So it will always be possible to encrypt something to find new hard problems. But old hard problems, they will become solvable. So if I have your sensitive data at the moment, I can decrypt that later. And there is no guarantee that it will stay private up until the end of time. Or to be exact, I can say that 100% at some point it will be solved. It's impossible that it will stay private up until the end of time. It's not possible. At some point it should be solved. And science teaches us, like in science, everything is broken. Newton's dynamics was broken. Relativity, Galileo's relativity was broken. All physical concepts, everything that we understand today, they will be achieved. They will be improved at some point. And at that point, our encrypted data can become public. That's the first advantage of ZK proofs. Because in ZK proofs, even if there is no quantum resistance, the proof's privacy is not a problem. If quantum computers come and they actually break our ZK proofs, they attack the soundness. So after the point that quantum computers are available, the proofs that we generate will no longer be valid. So people can create unvalid proofs. But proofs that I've created until that time will still be valid, and they will leak no information. And it's quite easy to change a protocol. Right now, Mina is not quantum resistant. Once we have a quantum computer that's really available, we can make Mina quantum resistant quite easily. And nothing will change about Mina's history. It will stay as private as it is today. The second is the legal side. So if there is a legal person here, I think that's quite interesting. And if you're a developer, I think it's also important. If you have a big application, and big I mean like 1,000 people, you need to store the data in a very legally okay way. In European Union, there is GDPR, and these regulations make storing data quite hard, even if it's encrypted. You can't just go to the court and say, the data is encrypted, I don't know about the data, so, it's not a problem. No, they say that even if it's encrypted, you need to have good data engineers. Your data servers probably should be in European Union, or, for instance, I'm from Turkey. In Turkey, they say that if you have sensitive data like healthcare data or military data or, this type of sensitive data, you need your databases to be in Turkey. That's a huge limitation. So storing data is a problem, even if it's encrypted, even if it's FHE or some other cool stuff. But with ZK, that's not the case, because you don't store the data. And if you don't store something, you cannot be actually legally responsible from it. No one can say you and say that like, I don't like this proof system, I don't trust it, so, have this legal obligation. No, in then like, I didn't have the data on my own. So that's a huge advantage. And finally, this third point, I think that's like a huge debate, but I think that like, it's easier to audit. With a ZK proof, if the proof system is broken, then, maybe it's not soundness resistant, so there's an error with the proof system, but still, it's private, because the size is constant. Understanding that a ZK proof has the zero knowledge property is much easier than you think, is the proof size constant. So I think in terms of privacy applications, ZK proofs are safer. With encryption-based solutions, you need to be sure that the encryption that you have is resistant against all possible attacks. How you would know that? You need some mathematical, experts. But with ZK systems, you can just adopt another proof system, and by just checking some simple properties, you can be like, yeah, this should be private. So that's also a huge advantage for developers. So yeah, was I talking about the fact that ZK proving is better? It's the better privacy choice. Everything should be ZK. No, that's not the case. And that was the first lesson about this talk. No solution is better than others. No tech is perfect, and there is no best option for anything. Make your own research, make your own decisions. Think for yourself. Yes, ZK has advantages over encryption-based solutions, but ZK cannot be adapted to everything. It's not possible. In some use cases, it's practically impossible. ZK encryption cannot give you the privacy that you need. For instance, let's say you want to make a voting application where votes don't get revealed until the end of election, but you want to count them. So you will first count votes, and then you will reveal the result. You need some type of FHE. Without FHE, that's almost impossible, because you want to count the votes, but you don't want to learn the result. Like, or you can have a trust setup or something, but in the end, using only ZK wouldn't be the solution. So we need some kind of encryption in some setups. But the second point of this talk, there are use cases for ZK much more than you think. If you are building a privacy application, don't just look to the FHE or like other cool encryption solutions. Don't be like, yeah, this one should be 100% private, I will use this one. If you can use ZK, because it can be the better option. And some very interesting use cases that is rarely talked about. I think private voting, we all know. ZK authentication is interesting. You can actually get rid of passwords. For instance, all passwords can be ZK proofs. That's huge, because then you can't even know user's password. User never sends the password to the server. That's like ultimate type of resistance that your server can have against, password leaks. That's quite strong. Also private transactions, of course. ZK has great use cases. Also with mixed nets, by the way. You can actually combine ZK inside your network to have better type of transactions. And a final example, I think this one is quite undervalued, is on data tracking. So data tracking isn't about storing data. It's about getting a value out of the data. If you can prove that the data has some value, like let's say that I want to sell something to someone who is a female living in Amsterdam, older than 25 years old. I don't need the exact data. I just need to know that that person is from that group. So I can combine all these in the client side, and by using a ZK proof, I can be 100% sure that that person is inside my group. And this type of an approach has amazing advantages over encryption. Like, we don't store the data. There is no legal obligations. There is no privacy breach. It stays encrypted up until the time. So I think all these are really important points. And there are many, many, many other use cases. I can't talk about all of them here. So yeah, that's the basic point. If you want to learn about the use cases of ZK and like the better way of achieving privacy in some use case, just come to me and ask. We can talk about like what is the best way of achieving privacy in that particular use case. But please specify use case, because without an application, there is no way of achieving it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yunus.
I have some time. Can I get some questions if there's any?
I mean, you can, one question. Any questions? Are there any questions? Anyone? No?
Yeah.
All right. Someone did have a question.
Can you maybe give us a good example of a use case where Mina was applied?
Was applied?
Yes.
So I think a novel example would be succinctness of long-term results in modular use cases. So recently we built this voting application, but it's also applicable to a DEX. You can basically have a DEX on top of Mina that is shattered around different layers. So first, there is client side to generate ZK proofs. Mina's ZK proof technology is powerful enough to be working in the client side. So that's a huge advantage. The first layer brings us privacy. First of all, you can have a private DEX as you like, but it also brings us scalability. Everyone generates their own proof, so there is no problem of scalability with more number of people joining the network. It stays the same in terms of computation power, because computation power increases with each browser. Then there's a DA layer. Mina doesn't have its own limitless DA layer, so you can actually adopt any DA layer inside Mina. For instance, in our use case, we use Celestia and Avail. You can just push your vote on the DA layer without any permission. You basically say that I have this DEX order, I have this I don't know, auction item, but the CK proof representing this action, I want this CK proof to be included in the chain. So you put it in the DA layer to someone to aggregate. And then you can design an permissionless aggregation sequencing layer on top of the DA layer. And it's very easy to make it permissionless because DA is open to anyone, and the light nodes can actually get the data without any censor from the DA. So I'm running out of time, so very quickly. Then there's the aggregation setup, and then you need to settle. In the settlement, we also have our own design using pre-assertions in Mina to make sure there is censorship resistance while settling. And once it's settled, now the entire result is succinctly proven in Mina, and then you can just bring it into Ethereum with very low gas fees so that you can actually have the result in Ethereum. So we use like 6 different blockchains in one DEX, and we enabled a perfect DEX by only using the best of everything.
Cool, thank you.